Hello, so I wanted to build a piece of code that could transcribe audio to text. So, a company called OpenAI launched an open source model called Whisper that would allow people to transcribe audio files to text, and it can do it in different languages. So for example, if I was speaking in English, which I am doing now, I could transcribe that to French, Hindi, Spanish. So you could transcribe that into text. So yeah, so it's pretty self-explanatory of how to get this stuff going. So we're going to do just that. So we're going to copy this on the page of how to use Whisper, copy the pip install, and I'm going to go into PyCharm and start working with this. Now I've already done it, and you can see here I have my environment activated. So you would do something like this, do that, and so that installs the core crux of Whisper. But then I need to install some other stuff that will be required. MoviePy. So copy that, and that should be really all you need in terms of external outputs or external libraries. I've already done it, so I don't need to do it. But yeah, so whilst that downloads, I'll explain what this basically does. So the Whisper ML model takes in audio text and puts it into the GPU or your computer's memory, and then processes it from there. Now you can come into issues where the file's too big and the computer can't process that big of a file. So by using MoviePy, what we will do is we'll cut the audio files into parts by at least about a minute so worth of content. It will pass that into the ML and then process that and then throw out the text-based output. And that's what we're trying to do. So that's why we need to import those sort of things. So first, we're going to just import. Now my keyboard is very loud, so I'm going to talk after I've typed in maybe a sentence or so. So yeah, so we're going to import the image clip, and then we're going to import and I think that should be it for our imports. Okay, cool. Now we need to specify a path to our audio file. So in this case, it will be this. So
the hobbit jumped nearly out of his skin when the hiss came in his ears, and he suddenly...
So that's our, I got a video from YouTube. I don't want to show it because I might get a copyright strike. But I downloaded that video from YouTube, and I'm going to use that audio to transcribe. So if we copy the location of that file, so copy. And let's just double check what the file was actually called. So properties, let's do Control A here. C, and yeah, that should be good enough. So that's the file for the audio clip. It's an MP4, but Whisper should be able to process that, and so should MoviePy, so it's fine being an MP4. So let's type in the audio clip name. So the variable we're going to use for this audio clip. So that we're loading the actual audio clip path into a variable name, and then we want to get. Alright, so then we're going to get the audio clip duration, and we'll store that in a variable n, and we're going to round it off because audio clips can be, the way MoviePy works, it measures everything in seconds or milliseconds because it's second then 2 decimal places after that. So yeah, I'm going to make a variable called counter equals 0, and then we're going to have a start variable which equals 0, and then we're going to say audio clip dot close because we want to close the original audio clip. What tends to happen is if you leave them open, it will just eat up space in your memory, and then the whole computer will crash. So just bear that in mind. Whenever you open something, close it. So then we're going to do an index, and this index is our time interval. So we'll say that as 60 seconds. We'll make that as a note. Interval. Yeah. So that'll be 60 seconds, and then we'll make a flag so that we can exit, because we're going to be using a while loop here, because we don't necessarily know how many loops we're going to do. Well, we could just have the n divided by the number of cycles we're going to do, but let's just be quick about this. I mean, this is so audio clip equals audio clip path, and then we're going to say if our index is bigger than or equal to n, then flag to exit will equal true, and that means we'll escape, and our index will equal our n value. So this is the case statement if we're about to exit. So last loop if case. So then we want to have a temporary variable called audio clip.subclip, which will be from our start to our index. So this is the part where we're actually clipping the audio file into parts now. So we then have to save it somewhere. So we have a saving location, which I want to use as a local directory here called, I'll show you where it is, it'll be easier that way. So temp audio holder, so that'll be here. So I'm going to delete these. So we copy the reference, the absolute, paste that in. And then let me put that in as temp underscore counter. Okay, so just to clarify what we're doing here, because it's a bit confusing. So we're making a saving location for each temp sub file we make, and every time I do that, I'm making a counter file. So do you see how before that had like temp underscore 1 underscore 2? It's because when we divide the files into parts, I want to know the placement of each file. So that's why we're doing it that way. So now we're going to say temp.write audio file name equals temp saving location. Then we're going to close it, because remember it takes up too much memory otherwise. Then counter plus equals 1. So we go up by 1 iteration. Then our start equals index. Go below that, audio clip.close, because remember we need to keep an eye on how many audio clips we open. If flag exit is true, then I want to break this for loop, because otherwise it will go on infinitely long. And index is plus equal to 60. So that way we go up by 1 time interval of 60 seconds. So yeah, that should now save the file to that folder. So let's run this. Just for now, because this is the first section of getting everything done, or at least everything going. So let's start in debug mode. So we're going to debug. Hopefully it works without errors. So go down, okay, it works. Crashed. str object not callable. Okay, so we're back, and the issue I was having was I was using audio clip, and I should be using audio file clip, which is the correct way of using it. So let's debug this and see if it works out. Okay, so if we go in line by line, so you can see the things loaded. Now let's make n so we know it's 129 seconds for the whole duration of that video. Close that clip, and then we know our index has been set for 60 seconds. We open the original clip again, but again we used the wrong type, so I need to change that again. So where did you go? Yes, audio file clip. So let's stop that, go back to it again. So again we're going to go back into it in debug mode. So if we press play to get to this bit, so it worked correctly now. We know that index is still smaller than n because n is 129 and index is 60. Then if we go down, we've created a subclip. We then create a location for it to save. So you can see counter here is 0. We're going to create a place for it to save. And then if we look at the console, you can see it's writing it. So if we look at, well, hopefully it should appear there in a minute. We then close the temp, increase the counter, make start equal to our index. We then close the original audio clip. We check if we need to exit. If we don't, then we increment by 60 seconds. And again, we do the same thing. So you can see we've got two. So if we open one of them,
said Gollum, and became quite polite. Perhaps he sits here and chats with it a bit, my precious. Likes.
Okay, cool. Just one more thing to add. I also changed the original file to an MP3. I just changed so the file was originally here. MP3. I just renamed it. I think it should work with MP4, but in case you run into errors, just play it safe and convert the whole file to MP3. Yeah, just to let you know, because I changed that to 3, not 4. Okay, cool. So we then want to go down, increment by 1, and we'll go all the way till we get to the end. Actually, let's do it till here. We'll see if the if statement gets caught. Okay, so we know index now is 240. We know that n is 192. So we want to make a final video that is just to the length or just to the end of the audio clip. So n equals, so we know that start is equal to 180, so that's 192, so that's 12, so just 12 seconds long. Done. Break, and we finished. Okay, so you can see we have 0 to 3, so about 4 audio clips there. So that's 60 seconds, 60 seconds, 60 seconds, 12 seconds. Cool, so we've divided the final video into increments. Now we need to pass them into the actual machine learning model where the processing will happen to convert it to a text file. Okay, so let's just jump to it. Now we know we've done, most of this stuff's already done, so we can comment this out. The while loop. Yeah, I don't think we need it anymore. So now let's say base underscore path so I'm just getting the location of the saved file locations. Copy that, and then we want to paste that in there, and we just want to use forward slashes because otherwise the IDE that I'm in thinks it's a type of escape character, gets confused. So let's list the So we want to list the files in that directory, so we know there are 4. Again, we're going to use start here to make that equal 0, end here to equal 0 as well, ID underscore counter equals 0 here. Then we're going to make another list called final underscore list underscore of text equals a list, open bracket, square bracket. And then here we're going to make a for loop. So for index in range len list of files path underscore to saved file os.path.join base path to save file is f temp underscore index dot mp3. So what this is essentially saying is we're getting, well, whilst we loop through the list, we're getting the file at the correct index placement. So you can see how you would have list of files, which is a list of that directory, which you know is from 0 to 3. And so the index, when it first starts out, will be 0. So temp underscore 0 would correlate to this file here. And we're making the path for that file. Cool, so we're going to say audio clip is equal to audio clip file path to saved file individual, and this way we're going to load that cut file, that segment, into our memory, and then we're going to get the duration of that clip, and so that's audio clip dot duration, audio clip dot close, because you just want to get the duration here. Then we're going to say model equals whisper dot load, and here is where you specify the model you want to use. So if you want a real accurate reading, it's best to use a medium model, but bear in mind it will take time because the medium model does more work than the otherwise baseline model. So you can have either medium or base. You can have different types, and most of them are documented here. So you can have base, small, medium, large, and bear in mind how much RAM is actually required. So if you've got a really tiny system, use tiny, but it's not going to be that efficient. If you want to use something that's idealish, it'll probably be a base, but if you want a proper accurate reading, you're going to use something like a medium. Okay, cool. So we used medium here, and then we're going to say the device we want to use. So right now, I want to specify the device I'm going to use is CPU. I'm going to use my CPU now, otherwise I'll probably use my GPU. I just want things to be simple. So out equals model dot transcribe out is where the actual output from the model will be, and so we're going to say from there just print out just to show us what it looks like, so we know what's running on behind the scenes. And then we're going to say text equals out segments. So just so you know, the actual output of out is in segment form, so it's like a list. So that's why I named it as that variable. So say line in list of text, and then we're going to say line. So we're going to say line start plus equals start, and we're going to say line end plus equals start as well. We're then going to say line ID is equal to ID underscore counter, and ID underscore counter plus equal 1. So we want to say end equals line end final append line. So just if you can clarify what's going on. So each one of these line objects is a list, and each one of those list objects stores a dictionary-like object. And so on a dictionary-like object, we're setting the start and the end parameters to be appended at the next start value. So let's say, for example, we have one item in the list, or one audio file that's a minute long. When we come around to processing the second one, the AI will think that it starts at 0, when it doesn't. It starts at the end of the first audio clip, which is 60 seconds onwards. So if it says the new clip starts at 00, it should actually start from 60 seconds, and everything else should be added on to that. So that's what we're doing here. So let's say it ends at 25 seconds, we'll plus 60 seconds onto that, so that'll be 85 seconds when it ends, in total. And we're appending the ID here, so we know which line comes which. It's a much easier way than having to work out the time work out the order based on time. So we're just going to use the audio ID here to work out placement, and then we're going to set the line end as the end. And then just at the outlet of this, we are going to say start is equal to duration, because bear in mind, not all the clips are a standard 60-second width. There might be something smaller, or there'll probably be something smaller, because the right at the end, the last clip will be about 12 seconds. So you want to be adding on the duration of each clip onto the start. So it's worth bearing in mind. Okay, cool. So this part, or this section here, is where we actually... Okay, so this section here is basically where we're getting all the data from the machine learning model, and we're populating that into this list, this final list. So to finally round off, we're going to make another for loop and say index in range len final list of text. We're going to say data equals to final list of text at our index placement if index plus 1 is bigger than or equal to the length of final index length, then break. Basically our ending if statement. And then we're going to say fur data. So fur data here is like my version of saying future data. Final list of text index plus 1 . Okay, so this section here is basically because in some cases we might take a long pause, so the audio clip might think that the subtitle only goes from... So let's say I start speaking at the 30th second and I speak for only 5 seconds, but the whole thing processed 40 seconds worth of content. It will only show the end case for the subtitle will just be from 30 to 35 and not 40. So you see there'll be a 5-second gap. So the idea of this is to cover that 5-second gap, because we are at the end making subtitles. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference if we have a gap of maybe 5 seconds. So yeah, okay. Now, just to finish off, we should make a function to save the subtitles. So def save underscore subtitles. Now I made this at the top because the way Python works, especially in scripts, it goes top down, so you want to declare all your functions above any script-based code like this. So put all your functions at the top. There's a reason why you put the call or a Python function call at the bottom. There's a reason for that. You do it like this. Okay, so we're going to say list of subtitles here. Path to save. And we'll save it from here. Copy. Yeah. Okay, so I have a file there already, but if you don't worry. You can say with open, and then we'll have the path to the file, so path to save, and then we'll have mode equal A+. Now that A+ basically means that if a file doesn't exist there, make one. So that's what that plus sign does there. As F, and then we'll say for I in list of subtitles, I want to f.write, yep, that. Then we want to say make new line dot format, and we want to put I there. So in case you don't know what I'm doing here, it's just a shorthand of making a string. So do you know how you can use F styling strings, like here, using the F. It's just a different version of that. Okay, so we're saving the subtitle to the file. So let's just call the function. So that should be done, and then we'll have save subtitles, and then the list of subtitles will be equal to our final list of text, and then we should be done. We can say print stop. Okay, cool. Now I know that's a lot, and that was a lot, because it's quite difficult to talk and look at the logic here. But just to round off again what we're actually doing, so we've sliced our video into 60-second intervals there, and then what we've done here is we've gotten the folder of where we sliced those audio videos or audio files here, and then we're listing them, and then we're passing those minute intervals into this machine learning model, so Whisper. And so far now we're using our CPU, because just for sanity's sake it's easier, and then we're going to transcribe that text out, and they're going to append that all to a final list, and this part here is doing the sorting of working out what subtitle comes after what, because bear in mind we're passing in new files to a model that doesn't understand it's connected to the previous file. So that's where we do a bit of logic here to work out the placement, and then this is where we set where we finalize some of the text. So just sort out some of the durations and the start and end values to make sense for an actual subtitle, and then we save it and write it to a file. So yeah, let's debug this, and I'll go through it line by line. So where should we start from? I don't think we need that. Yeah. Okay, debug. Hopefully it starts from here. Okay, we're starting from there. Go down. List of files. You can start at 0, 1, 2, 3. Start, end, ID counter. Final list is empty. Then index in range of this list file. 0, 1, 2, 3. Yep, makes sense. Alright, we're getting the file for that. What does the path look like? That looks alright. We're passing that in to make a clip, and then we're going to get the duration. We're then going to close it. We're then going to, that's a bit annoying, it's 60 seconds and 0.3. Okay, cool. And then we're going to pass it down. Okay, after a couple of minutes, the thing's processed the first file, and we've got this text coming out. So the hobbit nearly jumped out of his skin, blah 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 blah. Yeah, so that's the first minute being processed. So if we go down and then do some logic here. So this logic only really comes into, it only really does its thing after the second clip's been processed. So yeah, again we're going to the second clip now. So you can see index here is 1. The file itself now is temp1. So if we go down, get that, let it process again. So yeah, so what we're doing is we're adding the start, because this is in line segments, so it's like that. So each one of them we're adding the start to the start value here and the end value, and all the way to the bottom. So you can see that end is end 60. So in the end, the end should be 6060, which means the end should be 120. I confused myself there. Yeah. Okay. So you get that. So we can move on to the next one once this stuff's been processed and finished. Okay, so the thing's done using Whisper. I'll probably just fast forward the previous section up until here because a lot of it was just waiting. So yeah, now we're in the last bit, and I guess maybe it missed out the last 12 seconds of the audio because there's nothing there. If we just look at the audio, yeah, if we look at the last one. Oh, there's nothing there. Okay. Alright. Okay, so yeah. So let's just go through this last bit, and this bit just lines up the text from the previous file and links it up with the next file underneath it. So setting the start times and the end times to kind of be on top of one another, so it can easily transition between the two clips. Because I wanted to make a subtitle from this, like subtitle text, and subtitles seem to struggle when you leave out gaps. So like I explained before, if you have 2 seconds of speaking and it's processed 5 seconds, that gap of 3 seconds, the subtitles will just throw an error. So that's why it kind of, I'm trying to make it so it overlaps with the next piece of content. So yeah, so it does that stuff. And then we're going to save the subtitles. So if we go into here, let's just check the subtitles is empty. So here you can see there's nothing here. And if we just save that, I mean, you know what saving does, right? So yeah, so if I go into subtitles now, close that, and then I refresh it. Let's get out of the function. Stop, go into subtitles, and here you can see it's all saved down. And you can see the text is, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, who are you? And it understood that was a question. He said, comma, thrusting the dagger in front of him, full stop. What is it, comma, my precious? It seems quite familiar to what the piece of text is. And even, look, hello, Mr. Bilbo Baggins. I mean, given this is from The Hobbit, I mean, it's quite, these words are not commonly used, so it's quite interesting. And even quotes here. It's easy, said Bilbo Baggins, said Bilbo. So, quotes. That's pretty cool. Now, just to look at the IDs, it shows that which one occurred. It's like the sequencing, so that it got that right. The timings is perfect. 0, 6.6 starts at 6.6, ends at 10, and you can see they kind of like trail off. So 15, 15, 19.4, 19.4. And so it'll be perfectly easy to use as subtitles. And you can see it ends at 205.94. So as a comparison then, let's run the actual audio. And
The hobbit jumped nearly out of his skin when the hiss came in his ears, and he suddenly saw the pale eyes sticking out at him. Who are you? He said, thrusting the dagger out in front of him.
What is he, my precious?
Whispered Gollum, who always spoke to himself through never having anyone else to speak to. This is what he had come to find out, for he was not really very hungry at the moment, only curious. Otherwise, he would have grabbed first and whispered afterwards. I am Mr. Bilbo Baggins. I have lost the dwarves, and I have lost the wizard, and I don't know where I am, and I don't want to know, if only I can get away.
What's he got in his hands,
said Gollum, looking at the sword, which he did not quite like. A sword, a blade, which came out of Gondolin, said Gollum, and became quite polite.
okay, so I missed a couple of things there. It said, well, not missed, but it didn't translate it as good as a human could do. So the part where he said, what has he got in his hands? Gollum said, what has he got in his hands is. So maybe hands, ES. I mean, that's up to your imagination to really think about how you would think hands is pronounced. And then it didn't have the hiss. So it came out of Gondolin. Hissing sound, said Gollum. So I guess it wouldn't quite understand that. But again, subtitles don't always translate that to real text. But you can see it did a really good job. We'll listen to it more, because, I mean, him speaking is quite charismatic.
Perhaps he sits here and chats with it a bit, my precious. It likes riddles, perhaps, does it?
He was anxious to appear friendly, at any rate for the moment, until he found out more about the sword and the hobbit, whether he was quite alone really, whether he was good to eat, and whether Gollum was really hungry. Riddles were all he could think of. Asking them, and sometimes guessing them, had been the only game he had ever played with other funny creatures sitting in their holes in the long, long ago, before he lost all his friends and was driven away alone and crept down into the dark under the mountains. Very well, said Bilbo, who was anxious to agree, until he found out more about the creature, whether he was quite alone, whether he was fierce or hungry, and whether he was a friend of the goblins. You ask first, he said, because he had not had time to think of a riddle. So Gollum hissed.
What has roots, as nobody sees, is taller than trees. Up it goes, and yet never grows.
Oh, it's easy, said Bilbo. Mountain, I suppose.
Does it guess easy? I must have a competition with us, my precious. If Precious asks and he doesn't answer, we eats it, my precious. If it asks us and we doesn't answer, then we does what it wants, eh? We shows it the way out, yes?
All right, said Bilbo, not daring to disagree, and nearly bursting his brain to think of riddles that could save him from being eaten.
Delightful. So you can see the 12 seconds at the end is pretty much nothing. But still, it did a really good job. It managed to translate almost everything. Some words were just missed out. I guess some words really depend on the narrator to kind of pronounce them. It translated roles wrong, which should have been riddles. But besides that, it did a really good job. And I guess you could really use the subtitles in like a real professional field, or for YouTube or whatever. So yeah, that's the code about that's the code about how you would translate audio to text. Yeah, I hope that helps you out. And like and subscribe. It helps me with my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.